Hey listeners, one of the preeminent conferences of the year is just around the corner, the Market Council Summit. It's the capstone event of the year and includes the best and the brightest leaders from all corners of the wealth space. December 6th through the 9th in Miami Beach. What could be bad about that? Now, this conference is invite only and targeted towards growth-oriented RIA business leaders. If you qualify and want to secure an invite, send an email to me at tinainthesuitepodcast.com and I'll try my best to get you on the list. Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite. Meet Courtney McQuade, leading social media strategist at Citywire USA and at Social Solutions for Financial Services. With over a decade of experience, Courtney helps financial advisors reach their target audience and tap into opportunities through digital media strategies. Courtney's passion for the RIA industry is all over social media, especially on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, helping to lead the hashtag FinTwit and raise the profiles of women in finance and wealth management. Courtney is also deeply passionate about women in finance. I'll never forget how she hosted several virtual events in the beginning of the pandemic that brought women from all parts of the industry together in a way that was welcoming and warm. Courtney's evolution into the industry began when she interned at Dean Witter, now known as Morgan Stanley. She's also worked for Wachovia, followed by Wells Fargo, where she trained advisors on various fintech offerings. She's earned a reputation for being keenly aware of challenges and helping advisors find solutions. While working on the asset management side of Wells Fargo, Courtney discovered social media from a business point of view, implementing successful campaigns. Impressed by her work, Citywire approached her and Courtney launched their entire social media strategy and training wholesalers. There was no looking back from this moment on. In fact, one of the many gifts you'll discover in this episode is Courtney's passion for social communication. She's written various articles on trending topics about social media, including how to deepen client relationships and how to market creatively with video. She's even certified in American Sign Language. In today's podcast, Courtney provides a wealth of information that will help anyone and any business level up and discuss the fundamentals of developing an effective social media strategy, how to overcome the vulnerable and awkward feelings that we all have that come with posting, and why finding and using your authentic voice is essential for long-term success in the suite. Wow, Courtney McQuade, take a seat in the suite. It's so great to see you here. I'm so excited for doing this broadcast with you today. How are things? How are things in beautiful San Francisco?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a beautiful day. I'm actually now living right outside San Francisco in a town called Walnut Creek. And it's actually 104 degrees today. I have the air conditioning on.
104 degrees today. Wow. In Walnut Creek. Wow. That's great. So so getting out in the morning or getting out in the afternoon is the thing you have to do.
That's exactly what I have to do.
I'm here in Palm Beach Gardens, and whenever I have a podcast recording, I don't go outside until after the podcast recording because my
your hair frizz.
Exactly. Hair frizz. So I'll be going outside for the first time in a little while, but it's great to see you. I'm really excited. I think the last time that we saw each other was on a dance floor with DJ Scribble at T3 in Denton, Texas, with Anthony Stitch, CEO of Tony Stitch. Everybody knows Tony of Advice, wearing these really cool purple shoes. That was fun, right?
It was so fun. He definitely knows how to put on a party.
Yeah. And now we're back to conference season.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Amelia and I have already been talking about which conferences we want to attend. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see people. I need a hug. I'm going to need some hugs. I'm fully vaccinated.
Like the conferences should have like special sections for like vax and need a hug.
Yeah, that should be a thing. Definitely. We're thinking about Excel. Carson Group's Excel.
Yeah, Ron Carson.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the lineup that he's got. Yeah. Scott Harrison, Charity Water. Yeah. He's got President Bush, right? I'll leave it to Ron Carson and Terry Shepard. We had Terry on the podcast. Leave it to them for an all-star lineup. Yeah. I know. I'm drooling. I'm salivating over that program.
Yeah, we went a couple of years ago when he had it in Chicago, and it was fantastic. It was really a well-run event.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I will definitely be seeing you at a few. And yeah, a big shout out to Daniel Crosby. I have his book, Behavioral Investor, and he's always just fascinating to really listen to because he marries like the extremely technical quant with personality and flair. And he's a great follow on Instagram too.
I never knew quantitative analytics could be so interesting.
I know, like if I had an instructor or professor like Daniel Crosby, like Dr. Crosby in my early career, I might have considered behavioral finance. He would have made it that much more exciting.
Well, he breaks it down in a way that's really easy to understand and apply to yourself. And that's what I like the best about it. It's also such a nice thing to see the way that the financial industry is going. I mean, when I started in this industry, it was just there were brokers and they were picking stocks for their clients. And now, 20-something years later, it's changed so much. It's more holistic financial planning, looking at the whole picture and taking the whole behavioral aspect into consideration now, which has been needed for a long time. So it's nice to see it happening.
Yeah, well, I love to hear how you got in the industry because, I mean, one of the things that you and I share is we share a love for all things digital marketing, social media, writing about it, talking about it, speaking, walking the talk and talking the walk. And so how did you get here? How did you get into the industry?
Yeah, well, I first became interested in the stock market when I was the president of my econ class in high school. We actually sold stock certificates for a few dollars to all the kids in school. I took the money. We designed a sweatshirt with the high school mascot. We sold it. We made a profit, and I was able to give everybody a dividend. And I thought, this is amazing. We all made some money from it. And so then while I was in school, I interned at Dean Witter, now known as Morgan Stanley. And then I ended up working at Prudential Securities in operations. I started out in the trenches, so to speak. I was a new accounts clerk and then became a sales assistant and eventually became a branch admin. And then I moved over to New York City, and I was working as a branch admin out there at Prudential. And I was sort of recruited, if you will, to the technology side because they were looking for somebody that had actual branch experience. Because everybody in tech was just a tech person. They didn't know what actual branch life was like. What was a day in the life of a broker? What was a day in the life of a sales assistant? So I joined that team and helped them create the learning content in a way that branch personnel would understand. And I started traveling around teaching the financial advisors and the sales assistants how to use their, whatever the proprietary platform was back then. It was something powered by Thomson Reuters. And then we went through the merger, Wachovia buying out Pru, and then Wachovia bought out A.G. Edwards, and then Wells bought out Wachovia. And so that's how I ended up at Wells. And I worked in the learning and development for financial advisors for about 8 years. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Where did the marketing part of it, I mean, technology and learning platforms and things like that, I feel can intersect marketing, but you're like, now I feel like you're very niche in marketing and talking about all the platforms and how to create content and now teaching advisors. So where did that come into your career?
Well, after Wells Fargo, I moved over to the asset management side of the business and I was working on the sales desk. And then separately, in typical San Francisco fashion, I was working on a little startup with my friends on the side. And so while I used social media personally, I'd never used it for business. So we were just figuring it out. What is Twitter? How do you use it? What's SEO? Oh, we need SEO. We were just figuring everything out. And the CEO of the asset management firm that I worked for saw me on Twitter and said, hey, I really like what you're doing. Can you do it for us? Can you get the portfolio managers on it so that they can talk about their due diligence trips and the wholesalers on it? And so it just grew from there. And the next thing you know, they just pulled me off the sales desk. And I ended up building the social media compliance policy with the CCO because she was not really into it.
Oh, yeah.
And then launched.
They're still not into it, Courtney.
No. Oh, God, no. I think she retired because of it. But I ended up launching their whole social strategy and training the wholesalers how to use LinkedIn and Twitter to connect with intermediaries, to teach the portfolio managers how to use it, just to talk about their trips in a way that was compliance friendly about maybe when they're doing their due diligence trips, when they're trying to choose the companies for their funds, that sort of thing. So it just grew from there. And now I'm an independent consultant. Well, Citywire is my primary client, but I am an independent consultant now, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I love it.
Gosh, I've seen you everywhere. You've written some really great pieces. I really am fascinated to have the social media and marketing discussions with other marketing consultants and influencers like you, Courtney. Knowing what we know now, are you surprised that more firms even still are on the sidelines about, look, as my face is looking a certain way. I'm still surprised that more firms are, even more asset managers aren't on Twitter, even at least. Some don't even still have LinkedIn pages.
I know. Well, in some ways it's surprising. In some ways it's not. I think people are still scared. I think that there's a few parts to it, right? A few reasons. One, compliance people, they're still very nervous. And it's been a long time since I worked at a really large, heavily regulated firm, but I have dear friends that are still working there. And it's like, you have to get approval just to click a like on something on LinkedIn. I mean, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to help get your compliance team on board and feel comfortable, because you can do more than that, but it's a matter of building that trust. The other issue that I see quite a bit is they lack the technology that's required for the capturing of all the activity, right? That's a FINRA rule that you have to capture somehow using, like, I don't know. God, now I can't think.
We have a client that's using Global Relay.
Oh, Global Relay, right? Global Relay, Smarsh, whatever. And some of the older ones don't capture everything. Like, I think Smarsh is just now starting to capture Instagram, which I think was a barrier for a lot of people why they weren't using Instagram. Because if you're using something like Smarsh that you've been using forever, that's also an investment if you're going to cancel Smarsh and try to go to another compliance archiving platform, right? So
that's a good point.
It costs money. It's a big pain. They're still scared. It just depends on that particular company's culture. And each year I see it grow more and more. So I think it's just going to take more time.
Well, you've written some really cool articles on the subject, and you were writing about these themes when they were emerging, but more importantly, when they started to really take traction in the industry. So you talk about deepening the client relationship, having to use Facebook for that, how to get creative with marketing videos. And I was wondering, what would you say if you had to write something today? What would be a couple of tips that you could offer to the listeners right now? Because I feel that we're getting back to how things were before the pandemic, being in front of people, rubbing elbows, being at conferences, speaking, just a lot more people interaction. What would some of your best tips be for those people, those advisors?
Well, I think that the top 3 marketing tips that I would give right now is you have to plan, right? I'm sure you've heard the old phrase, failing to plan is planning to fail, right? And so there's 3 key things everybody needs to do in any industry. And that, number 1, build your foundation of your house. And the foundation of your house is figuring out your branding and your messaging, who you are, who you stand for, what's your differentiator. Even if you have to hire a branding agency to work through this as a project for you, that's really the foundation of everything that you're going to do. Figure out your brand, figure out your messaging. Then the second most important thing is content. Content is king. I mean, I always tell people, hey, I could create the best strategy for you, but if you don't have amazing content, it's not going to work. And a lot of people make the mistake of saying, oh, well, I can just write the blog post on my own, or I can do this or that on my own. And unless that's your expertise or you have a lot of help, that usually doesn't really work. Not to mention there's a way to create a content strategy that converts. In fact, Johnny Sandquist from Three Crowns was explaining to me a couple of years ago when we met, I forget which event it was, but we were talking about the content pillars that are involved in a content strategy. It's not just like you come up with a blog post once a week. There's an actual structure to it that you have to think about when you're building that content strategy. And the third thing that I would recommend is be willing to try something new, even if it feels awkward, even if you know you're taking a risk of it not working or it screws up. It's always a learning experience. Things are always changing, and it's great to try new things. And one of the cool things that I'm seeing grow over the last couple of years is voice marketing. Do you know Emily Binder?
I do. And actually, I heard her on Taco Tech. It's interesting that you bring the name of Johnny Sandquist up because we've got to have Tori Hoppy too on the podcast. Yeah. And I was just on their podcast, and we've been trying to get through our editorial calendar. And I know that they're going to have a lot of great things to say. They're going to be at Riskalyze, and they're going to be recording from Riskalyze. Yeah. So I'm going to try to get them in before they do that. But yes, it's so interesting that you say that.
Yeah. We had Emily come speak on a panel, a voice marketing panel at our Citywire RIA Austin event back in 2019. And her presentation was just amazing. It was fantastic. One of the stats that she gave is that hearing is fastest of our senses, which I never thought about. You actually hear 10 times faster than the blink of an eye, than you can see. And it's such a memory. So voice marketing, and she's doing it with her new company, Wealth Voice, as well, through Amazon Alexa or like podcasting, exactly what you're doing, is really, really the wave of the future.
The other thing is, as our cars now are more kind of augmented for technology, as we're wearing wearables, I've always said to an advisor, how is somebody going to listen to your website? Like, how is you need to have that audio type of content, but I implore the people listening right now, it doesn't matter what vertical that you're even working in. You could be in healthcare. You could be listening right now in education. You need to make sure that your content has a voice.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And it's also a great way to repurpose too. You know, any video that you shoot, take the sound from it, put it onto a Spotify or iTunes channel, put it onto an Alexa skill. It's a great idea. In fact, Emily was just telling me she's showing financial advisors how they can use Alexa skills just to give a quick update to all of their clients at once. And she has the genius idea of every time there's a new client, and I didn't mean to make this a pitch for Emily, but
oh no, we're not like this.
I'm just chatting with her. But I thought this was such a great idea. She's helping advisors anytime they get a new client. Part of the onboarding process is they send them an Alexa, which is genius. And it's easier for people that, maybe older people like my folks. Yeah. Computers, they're not that advanced. I got them an Alexa, and my dad loves it because he can just say whatever he wants.
I will say this, that my mother also too loves her Alexa. And here's where I think that if you are like the Daniel Crosby PhD type, I think that there's going to be studies on seniors and aging well and using your Alexa device to sharpen your memory. So what my mother has done is that she has figured out the marriage of her lamp over in her kitchen, and it even changes color. Alexa, kitchen table yellow, kitchen light, blue. She'd still be listening to this podcast right now and laughing about it. But and what a wonderful way. If you're fantastic. Also too, you're living alone what's the weather? Tell me about this fact. I think that it can be really such an interactive mind memory sharpening tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great idea.
I want to talk a little bit about, again, one of the fun jobs that I have here is to stalk our guests on LinkedIn. And I loved what you had said. Actual experience has taught me that my professional value boils down to these three key tenets. I ask the right questions. I step in whenever I'm needed. I bring people together, and I inspire action and confidence. I loved that. I think like more people in this industry have to learn to, I don't know, tell their story from that position.
Yeah, well, truth be told, I did not write that. It's hard to write about yourself. At least it was for me. And I actually hired a gal who's a fantastic writer, and she asked me a million questions, and she came up with that. And once she wrote it, I thought, yeah, I guess this is true. I'm big into asking a lot of questions. It was interesting to me when I first started consulting, and people would come to me and say, well, what do you usually do with this? Or, if I need a strategy, don't you just have like a template you can kind of fill in for me? And it's like, no, every single person or client I've ever worked with, everything is very different. It depends on fintech, an asset manager, an RIA. Are they comfortable with technology? Are they comfortable with social media or not? So it's really important to ask the right questions, because they don't know what they don't know, right? So you have to ask the right questions to get it out of them, to figure out what's going to work for them, what they're going to actually feel comfortable with doing. Because the other thing is, I think people think they can hire me and then they just don't have to worry about anything. But social media, that's like sending somebody out to be you at an industry event, right? Social media is very social, and it's got to be you. And whenever somebody asks me if they can hire me to manage their personal social media, their Twitter, their LinkedIn, it's not that I don't want to do it or I'm too good or anything like that. It's just, it's not authentic. It has to be them. It has to be, I'm not going to know every single person that they know where I can go in and engage and comment. So anyway, just trying to figure out what each person or what each company needs, asking the questions, trying to give them a point of view, trying to help them find comfort in it. Last summer, when quarantine started, I had two different people reach out to me from different areas of the industry that are very successful in this industry and have been in the industry for over 30 years, but never use social media. They've been very successful just because they're amazing at what they do. And when quarantine hit, they came to me and they said, gosh, I realized, all right, if I'm ever going to get on social media, now is the time. A lot of it was what I call Twitter therapy. We sat and we just talked about how it feels, the awkwardness, the vulnerability. One person said, it almost feels narcissistic to be posting about yourself, talking about the ins and outs of that, what it's like. And I always try to compare it to real life to help them get the feel for it. One person said to me, well, gosh, I was so excited when I posted on LinkedIn, we won best place to work in the city. And gosh, the comments, there were so many. It was so nice. It made me feel so good. And I thought, is it appropriate to respond to every single one? Or is that kind of too much or overbearing or narcissistic? And I said, I totally understand how it could feel that way, right? Because when you're seeing it like that. And I said, but think of social media as a digital version of networking in real life. So if you were walking down the street and your business partner was walking towards you and you're each going on to another meeting or appointment, so you briefly stop for a second and the person says, hey, congratulations on winning best place to work. Would you just say nothing and walk on? No, you would say, hey, thanks. Great to see you. Bye. And then you move on. So it's just trying to frame it in a way that you can relate it to real life and helping people just dip their toe in the water. I mean, I've worked in social media for a million years and I still have moments where I post something and I think, is that dumb? Should I take that down? Why didn't I get any likes? I mean, it's normal. Everybody feels like that. Even I've had some big influencers tell me that they felt that way. So it's normal. That's a lot of what I do with people when they're feeling awkward.
That's so interesting. I do see the parallel that you're talking about between social media and real life. Even for myself, I can identify with being, some days having that, I don't know, that trepidation. There was even a situation that happened to me most recently where somebody put something in the feed on LinkedIn, and it was one of the team members here, Kimmy Rice, who was promoted to visual content creator. And so I wanted to reply back to that, but I couldn't at that moment because I didn't have enough time. I wanted to gather my thoughts. I wanted to make sure that I was present for creating that, right?
Yeah,
but I
good
said
for
to
you.
her, I said, you know what, Kimmy, I said, I could easily get somebody else to just kind of, hey, write something on my behalf. But I was like, can you imagine, Courtney, if I said, hey, can you handwrite the letter to my client? Can you handwrite, or you said vice versa, where you would have somebody else write a thank you letter for you? And so it's like, no, it has to be authentic. I'd rather see more authenticity and less stuff, right?
Agreed. And sometimes that can be hard, being authentic. Not that people are not being inauthentic, but they're just so, I guess, for lack of a better word, self-conscious about whatever it is they're posting, that it's not what they're really feeling at the time. So it takes time. It takes some getting used to. I mean, hey, in real life, we have our moments where we're tired and we don't want to be social. Maybe we don't want to go to the party. Maybe we don't feel like going to the happy hour after work. We just want to go home and rest and put on our PJs, right? I mean, it's going to be like that in social media too sometimes.
Yeah. Are there ever periods also too that you see that where it's just like fatigue, you just need a break?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Where it's like, okay, let me just kind of take a break from either this platform or just being quiet and not being on any platform for a little while.
Well, I never ever take a break from any platform because I'm always watching. But something I've started working with this meditation coach a couple months ago, and it's been life-changing, talking about trying to be more present. And one of the things that I've learned through him that does help me take a break is I now keep my phone on do not disturb all day long. I used to only do it at night while I was sleeping. And then during the day, I'm always getting a little ping because I've got a few different Twitter profiles on there. I've got all kinds of notifications going off all the time. And I just felt like, well, I need to know the moment something happens. I need to know, right? But if I'm trying to write or stay focused, even if I just glance for a minute when I see something pop up, it's taking away whatever my thought process is. So now having my phone on do not disturb during the day, and then I'm checking it when I want to.
Right.
That's actually been a really nice change for me where I can be proactive instead of reactive. I'm focused. I'm more relaxed. It's really nice.
Yeah, but I also see social as a way to champion other people. And so you have clients that have championed you. And this I thought was a great way to kind of ladder into my big burning question for Courtney McQuade. So here it is. And it keeps on coming up on social media. So we're talking about social media. This is the natural progression.
I think I know what this is.
Okay, so here's a LinkedIn endorsement. Courtney is a gem. If you want to be put at ease with someone who is both knowledgeable and personable, then you have found her. She has the ability to steer you in the right direction from what you have developed with a manner that makes you instantly trust her. Inquisitive and insightful, she will help you with all the aspects of social media, both strategically and tactically. And if that isn't enough, and here's the drum roll and the burning question, she loves buffalo hot wings. Person? I think so. Okay. We finally get the scoop. What's with the buffalo wild wings? Buffalo hot wings.
That was Roy. I did meet him last year and we had the chance to work together and we clicked and became immediate friends. He is hilarious, a longtime veteran in the industry. Yeah, and we bonded over buffalo wings too. I do. I love buffalo wings. I don't even know when it started. I've just loved them my whole life. And I guess I didn't realize how much I posted about them until people started commenting about it. I mean, even when I would go up the street to my Orange Theory class, one of the kids that worked behind the desk, he'd always say, "Hey, did you have any buffalo wings this weekend, Courtney?" Because I guess I was always putting them in my story. And then debates would come up on Twitter, and I thought, oh, yeah, I guess I am a buffalo wing pro in my own mind.
Oh, that's so funny.
Every time I go somewhere, I like to try all the buffalo wings and try to find the best place. And frankly, lately, Tina, I've been pretty disappointed. So I don't know what's going on, but I need to find some amazing wings. I'm still on the hunt. I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Well, I'll help you search.
I love that.
So I love both Orange Theory and Buffalo Wild Wings. So check.
Perfect.
Hey listeners, we want to thank our friends over at Redtail CRM for helping us to make all things possible here in the suite. Redtail Technology is the industry leader in software for CRM, document imaging, and email solutions for financial advisors. Visit redtailtechnology.com to check them out. And well, so speaking of the pandemic too, so I was on a couple of Zoom calls that you hosted for women in finance. And I have to tell you that those virtual meetings, that's another thing what social is really great for. You wouldn't have had that invitation. Getting to people through social media is a lot easier than nobody knows the emails. It's what I say for clients, for reporters too. A reporter's not going to go to your website, submit a form. It's a lot easier for media people to contact you via LinkedIn and Twitter. So that's another reason. But you did such a great job hosting these women in finance discussions. And I just wanted to thank you for it. It was a lot of organization. A lot of us were there. Yeah, there were 2 and 3 Zoom screens with it. So you have always aligned to women in finance and helping to empower other people.
Yeah. Well, when I started in the industry, it was women were sales assistants and men were brokers. And that was it. It was rare that there was a female broker. In fact, when I worked at one of the big wirehouses, it starts with an M, my branch manager used to have separate Christmas parties, one for the sales assistants and their husbands, and one for the brokers and their wives. And he said straight up, well, because your husbands don't really have anything in common with the brokers, and the brokers' wives don't really, have anything in common with you. I mean, he said that. And it was normal. It was normal. Or he would call me babes. I mean, we had a great relationship. I adored him. But looking back now, it's just I can't believe that was normal. So it's just fantastic to see the way that things are growing and building a network. And I think that the silver lining of the quarantine was that we were able to do that, because prior to quarantine, Sonia Dreisler and Catherine Earhart and I had organized a few women in finance groups, get-togethers in San Francisco. And it was really fun. People loved it so much, they kept asking me when I was going to do another one. And we only had 2, and then quarantine happened. So I thought, well, let's do a Zoom. And then I thought, gosh, the benefit of that is we can invite everyone. And it worked out really well. I've heard about people that they met through those events and then ended up meeting in real life because they were in the same neighborhood and they didn't know each other prior. And gosh, I've made so many great friends that I haven't met in real life yet. Stephanie Foster, I adore her. We have not met in real life yet. Jess Boss, Liz Slater. I mean, I really can't wait until this fall happens and we can all hang out. It'll be great.
You are just all of these names: Sonia, Stephanie, Jess. I think there was one. Who was there? Someone
Liz Slater.
Yeah, Liz. This is exactly the value of social media, is that now when we do see each other in person, we know something about them. Chances are that too, before I get to a conference or an event, I don't know about you. I'm sure you do this too, right? You go to someone's social profiles, you go to their Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And that also too, even before I interview people, I'm stalking on social media, and I use that term affectionately.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to kind of get to know a person and just get a sense of who they are and what they're about.
Just as a side note, what you were talking about in researching people on their social platforms, it's something I always suggest to financial advisors. I'm sure that you do too, if that's what you do. Before you meet with a prospect, do your due diligence. Look them up on LinkedIn. Some advisors then they say to me, well, gosh, they'll know that I looked at their profile. And I always say, hey, that's great. It's a compliment, right?
Yes, exactly.
And it shows you're doing the work, and you can come into the meeting like, hey, I see we went to the same school, or we like the same things, or whatever it is. You can find that commonality and that bond immediately.
Yeah. And to your point, it is showing that you've cared enough about that person to understand who they are and what they are about. What about, well, you know what? One of the things, I haven't been on Clubhouse in a couple weeks. The last time I was there, I was on Aaron Klein's Wealth Tech dinner party. Keena Pettijohn was one of the hosts that night, which it was quite fun. What are your thoughts on Clubhouse, and what are your thoughts on Instagram?
Clubhouse was fun for a minute, right? And I think it was genius marketing. They created that FOMO factor by making it invite only. The last time I heard of that, it was when Gmail rolled out. You could only get a Gmail with an invite, right? So automatically, have you gotten an invite? Have you gotten an invite? And that was genius. But unfortunately, Twitter rolled it out, and we're already all on Twitter. So why go to a separate app when you can have 2-in-1 on Twitter? So I think that fizzled, and Twitter Spaces will rule in the end. So
I think so too. I think Twitter took a page out of the Facebook playbook, and that is that copy the features, right? Copy the features of your competitor, because your people are already there.
It worked. I mean, it's just like with the whole stories feature. Snapchat came up with it. Now Instagram and Facebook have it. Even LinkedIn has it. And then also Facebook is creating Facebook Spaces. They already have, I think. So little features like that. I don't know if you'd want to build an entire company around it when one of the big four can just add it.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Instagram? So you wrote an article a while ago on how to make your Instagram debut, and that it was how to IG your, I forget exactly what
the case for Instagram or something.
Yeah, it was really cool. What are you seeing in terms of traction with financial advisors on Instagram, and what would be your advice to them?
I'm seeing it grow really quickly now. In the beginning, it took a little while. And based on my conversations with advisors, when I would ask them, are you interested in Instagram? Why aren't you on Instagram? In the beginning, it was because, like we were talking about before, those compliance technology archiving tools just didn't adopt it yet,
right?
And they weren't going to go and buy a brand new software technology platform just to capture Instagram. So they had to wait for Smarsh to catch up and be able to include capturing activity on Instagram and that sort of thing. And so now I think most of them, the last I checked, they're all able to include Instagram. And it is nice to see a lot of advisors picking it up. It's a little bit of a different strategy. So you have to think about that, what you're going to post, right? Because whatever you post on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, it can be fairly similar, just adjusted slightly for each platform because they're all link-based, right? Instagram, you can't use a link, and it's extremely visual. So you want to think about, is it something that's going to go in my gallery, or is it something that's just good for a story? That goes back to your whole content strategy, something to think about when you're building that out, how you can turn some of your content Instagrammable. Loads of people watch stories now more than they actually look at the home feed. I mean, they still do, but stories are very powerful. And if you're not tapping the stories feature, I think you're missing out. Because, in fact, I was just looking today, actually, for something else I was writing. Instagram's hit over 1 billion users.
Wow.
Yeah. And, it started a little over 10 years ago as just purely visual. And now it's changed so much. I mean, from allowing videos last year during the pandemic, the length of video that you could add or upload your own native to IGTV was released. And I think it was because of quarantine, actually. And then the age ranges, I was looking at some statistics, about 33%, the highest percentage in the age brackets that use it are 25 to 34.
Oh, that's a sweet demographic.
It is, because are those millennials now? I'm not sure, but
millennials are what, like 1980 to 2000?
Something like that.
Right. I think that's the band for that. So
but
it's
that age.
Yeah.
When you hit your 30s, that's when you start making more and more money and you're ready to invest.
Right.
I think it's a great area for advisors. It's a great way to target untapped audiences potentially, right? And people that are Henrys, high earners, not yet rich.
Yep.
Rianka told me about that. And also it's where you can connect with your clients' beneficiaries, right? So you can start building those. With everybody has been talking about it for years, the whole generational wealth transfer. So I think definitely Instagram is something that advisors would want to at least take a look at.
Yeah, especially for that next gen, for that G2 and that G3 audience. If those people don't see you on a social platform, then you really don't exist to them.
They're going to wonder.
I know. They're going to be like, what are you hiding? Why aren't you here? Instagram also too provides some really powerful analytics and even some advertising targeting strategies. And there's so many different types of strategies. I think advisors can absolutely benefit from having an Instagram strategy, but to your point, to really have it carefully created and curated. So let's also talk about Citywire. You've been working now with Citywire for many years, and we talked a little bit about the events coming back, but kind of tell us what you're doing at Citywire and some of the exciting things that are coming up.
Yeah, well, Citywire, of course, also has some fantastic events. We have 2 different types of events coming up. We have our pro buyer events, and pro buyer is short for professional buyer or professional mutual fund buyer, due diligence analyst. Anybody who selects the funds for their firm's platforms, right? And then we have our RIA events, which we just launched in 2019 and have been put on hold. But they're really a dynamic, powerful, impactful day and a half event. It's invite only. And if you're interested, reach out to Amelia Garland and her team, and they can get you set up to attend if you qualify. You'll learn a lot. They're full of valuable information. We always have 3 amazing keynote speakers. They're always at a beautiful location, like a Four Seasons or a Ritz. I mean, Citywire events are so well produced and they're super fun, and you'll get a lot of information in just, like I said, a day and a half. Just be ready to make sure you rest up before you come to a Citywire event, because it's a lot. It's great.
That's awesome. That's really something cool to look forward to. And yeah, big shout out to Amelia Garland as well. And everybody at Citywire. We'll make sure that we have links. And so definitely take advantage. Courtney, you had said something earlier, right? One of your third strategies here, tips for advisors, is to try to do something new. Mm-hmm. Something new could mean to go to like a Citywire event, or just to get yourself and put yourself in a new domain, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And try new things with your marketing. And at any of these events, I think, like you were saying before, do your due diligence. Take a look at who else is attending the event. Take a look at their social media profiles. Maybe set up a meeting if there's somebody that you've always wanted to talk to. Plan a little bit in advance who you're going to try and connect with, because while our Citywire events, we keep them small, 80-ish people or so. These other industry events are huge, and it can be kind of overwhelming. And so using social media to research who's attending, reach out, make some plans to meet people in advance can really help streamline your efforts. So when you get there, it's not just crazy.
Yeah. And I also want to mention too that the Citywire Pro Buyer, and by the way, I'm not receiving any compensation for any of these. This is just great information that I want everyone to know about. Okay. Great positive things that are happening in the industry, great gateways to get information, to be in front of people, to learn new concepts. That's what this podcast is all about. So there's nothing happening I just want to make that clear to our listeners right now. But Citywire Pro Buy has their own Twitter as well too. So we'll put that link. And I saw that you just had something from Boston Private CIO, Shannon Sakosha. I've been fangirling her too on Twitter. And yeah, so she's amazing. Some really cool stuff here.
Yeah. Shannon is a great contributor when we want to tap somebody for their expertise. I mean, there's so many great people out there, but yeah, Shannon was just recently, I think I know which tweet you're talking about. She was talking about how boutique asset managers can get in front of gatekeepers. And one of the things that she was saying that she looks for is, of course, they want portfolio managers to produce the investment results. But sometimes, a boutique asset manager is a little bit smaller. Maybe they're trying to do too many things themselves. So her suggestion was to outsource the things that you can. You can't outsource producing the investment results, but you can outsource like compliance, distribution, that sort of thing, so that the portfolio managers can stay focused on the investment results. And I just thought that was such a great tip. And if you want to see the whole article, you can take a look at it on the Citywire ProBuyer Twitter handle. You know what I'm really excited about this year is Amelia's audience development team has grown. So this year you'll see Amelia, and she's my media star, shoots all the interviews, but this year her team has grown. So if you haven't already, you're going to meet Haley Hannafy and Dave Masterson. So they're going to be out there with Amelia, and you'll see them shooting some interviews too. I'll be behind the camera as usual, but it'll be Amelia, Dave, and Haley that are going to be doing the interviews. So we hope to see everybody out at the events and to hear their stories.
Yeah. And maybe one of the things that the advisors listening are going to do is definitely more video.
Yeah.
So I love also too that you volunteer. And I think we're all about making sure that if we're going to change and bring more women into the industry, it's definitely going to happen at a younger level. Let's face it. I came here as a second career, and that was really super, super hard to do. I'm glad I did it, but I would have much earlier. I would have wished that somebody would have thrown me a lifeline in my 20s, quite truthfully.
Yeah.
But I see that you're a founder and a former chair of the Walnut Creek Young Professionals. So how fantastic is that?
Yeah, that was really fun. It was something that I did with the Chamber of Commerce while I was doing some volunteer work with them. The CEO asked me if I'd help them start that, which I kind of laughed because I was in my mid-30s at the time. I wasn't exactly a young professional, but it was fun to help them get it started. And I think it's a powerful thing for young people to find other people around their same age and build their network. Because if you go to a company, it's not going to be necessarily all people your age. Could be a wide variety of age ranges. So young professional groups are nice, and they can support each other and support each other's businesses. And a big part of what we did in Walnut Creek was wherever we had our meetings, we'd also try to support the local community and go to local restaurants to have our events and things like that. And then we also partnered with other professional groups that weren't young professional groups, so that we could mix with, every once in a while with people that were a little bit older and had more experience, so that the young professionals could find potential like mentors and partners and things like that. And I think it's a great thing. There's a new guy that's taken it over, and he's doing a really great job.
Any advice to anybody that's kind of coming into this industry as a newbie?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing I can say is, if possible, if you're still in school, try to get some internships in the summer in the industry and start building your LinkedIn profile while you're in college. List your internships, list any honors or awards from school, connect with anybody that you do internships with, connect with your alumni, so that when you graduate, you already have the beginnings of a good LinkedIn profile. And then once you've graduated, start using those connections to look for potential jobs, advice, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and go with your gut.
I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you before we get your awesome book recommendation. What are the best ways for people to reach you?
Through LinkedIn or Twitter. Always feel free to reach out.
So we're kind of changing it up this year and just asking about if there's an awesome book recommendation that you have for 2021. We're in this kind of summer reading phase.
Yeah. Well, truth be told, I don't read a ton of books. I listen to more podcasts, but I do have two that's been sitting on my nightstand. And one is Valera Wilson's. I brought it here with me, actually. You're absolutely worth it. So sometimes in the evenings, it's taken me a little bit of time because I'm not a big book reader. As I said, I tend to listen to podcasts and then wind down at night. And I'm also studying my meditation a lot in the evenings. But Valera is just such an inspiration. That book is a must read for every single woman. It's really, really fantastic. And then the other book that's also sitting on my nightstand is My Descent into Death that Liz Slater sent me. I thought it was the sweetest thing. I had shared with her, I lost my brother to a drug overdose in 2009, which was pretty devastating for me. And I was confiding into her about that, and she sent me this book. So I'm really looking forward to dig into that. I think it's really sweet and thoughtful. And the power of Pinchwit, that was so sweet of her. I haven't even met her in real life, and that's the type of bond we already have. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Wow. The power of social media right there. I'm so sorry about your brother. I thank you for just sharing that. And also to sharing the book recommendation, because I know, again, this podcast is to help people. We're all human and we all go through all kinds of situations. On a happier note, I know Valera, she's been on the podcast too, and her book is fantastic. I think it's written from, a lot of women, at least I saw myself in a lot of pages within that book, right?
Yeah.
It's right. It's really about
it's
kind of calling out.
It is.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're ever feeling in doubt, pick up that book and read a few pages.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I think we think we're the only ones that feel a certain way or think a certain way, and it's not true. Everybody has their doubts. Everybody has their times where they're questioning themselves, and it's a great book. It's a great pick me up. It's inspirational. I love it.
Well, Courtney McQuade, you've picked us up here. You've given us some really great strategies. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you now before life starts to get really busy again. And I just want to thank you for helping the profession, helping women, helping advisors, and being a bright light for me. I'm one of your followers on social, and I'm one of your fans too. So thank you so much for being here. And we've really enjoyed our time.
Thank you so much, Tina. It's great to see you.
You too. Take care. You're listening to In the Suite, a podcast that shares amazing stories of women in business in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Our producers are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirshorn. Our editor-at-large is Kevin Hirshorn. Our content writers are Dimple Rashandani, Sarah Smirker, and Tina Powell. Our research and technical assistant is Sarah Smirker. In the Suite podcast is sponsored by C-Suite Social Media, a high-performance marketing agency for RIAs and fintech companies in wealth management industry. You can visit csuitesocialmedia.com to learn more. And thank you so much for listening and subscribing. We've got listeners in 906 cities and 50 countries as of today. We are so grateful to you, especially for your 5-star reviews. So thank you so much. This podcast was inspired by you and created for women who want to lead. So please let us know how you enjoyed this amazing episode with Courtney McQuade, and share your thoughts on LinkedIn and Twitter, #InTheSuite. You can connect with Courtney on LinkedIn and follow her on Twitter @CourtMcQuade. And always, if you would like to share the name of a rock star woman in financial services we should interview in 2022, please send it to me, Tina @InTheSuitePodcast.com, and we will consider it. Again, thank you so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite.